Recapping briefly the tragedy of Space Shuttle Challenger, all 7 on board the billion-dollar craft, including the first public citizen, a schoolteacher, were killed in the gush of flame that engulfed it moments after liftoff. No one yet knows why. And so tonight for our nation, death in the family. Once again, the horror unfolding before our eyes. But the fire this time came not from the quest for revenge from the point of a gun or a bomb, but the quest for knowledge, the point of knowing what's out there and what we can do there in space. Even as our own robot eyes and ears beam back knowledge from the very edges of our solar system and beyond, even as we try to see Halley's Comet for the first time as gases and ice formations from the beginning of time, instead of an omen, even as we take our first tetherless walks in space, we did it then and they did it today because humans want to see and to hear, need to see and to hear and to feel, to be there. 7 searchers died today doing what astronauts do, doing what a good teacher does, expanding what is in the realm of the known, pushing the edge of the envelope, full out, full throttle, reaching for the sky. That's the CBS Evening News this Tuesday. Until our special broadcast on the tragedy of Space Shuttle Challenger tonight at 10 o'clock, 9 Central Time, Dan Rather, CBS News, New York. In Florida tonight, newly refurbished Launch Pad 39B, Space Shuttle Challenger was the first to leave its embrace in more than a decade. It blasted off in a blaze of fire amid the ice on the pad. A scant minute later, gone in all a consuming ball of fire. All that was challenging, all the technology and hopes, and 7 people riding on the top of 500,000 gallons of rocket kick. 6 astronauts and a teacher who was us all, gone forever in a matter of seconds. Hours later, national mourning and a national eulogy from the president.
For the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them, this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye, and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
This is a CBS News special report. Disaster in space. Reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
It was there for all to see, open, above board, almost routine. Another space shuttle launch. So many saw it happen. So little is still known tonight about why it happened. Tonight, the search planes and desperate rescue helicopter crews that had looked for signs of survivors all day in vain, tonight they were recalled. They will start again at first light. Ships are still crisscrossing off the coast of Florida. All they have found in the cold Atlantic is small debris from the once mighty Challenger. The largest pieces of that debris, no bigger than 2 feet wide and under 10 feet long. That is all that remains tonight of 7 hero pioneers and tons of high tech. Some of America's best and brightest young people, some of the most complex machinery and electrical apparatus in the history of humankind. It happened at Challenger's moment of full thrust, point of highest stress, where metal meets air at 2,000 miles an hour. It happened in real time before noon, a slow-motion horror for all who watched.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff. And it has cleared the tower.
The president, like all Americans, watched this on television.
The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
Challenger, go at throttle up. Roger, go at throttle up. Obviously a major malfunction. We have a report from the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded.
They had a hunger to explore the universe and discover its truths. They wished to serve, and they did. The Challenger crew was pulling us into the future, and we'll continue to follow them.
Joining us now in Los Angeles is Leo Krupp, a former shuttle test pilot for Rockwell International. Leo Krupp, good to have you with us this evening. What I would like for you to do, first of all, is let's take a look of the videotape from today. Talk us through it, where the places are, where there are questions, where the suspicions are. But before we do that, let's take a look at the scale model we have in the studio with us, Leo Krupp, and check me as we go along here. Just a reminder that the space orbiter, the spaceship itself, the Space Shuttle Challenger, is attached to this huge fuel tank which contains liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, highly explosive. Off on the sides are the solid rocket fuel boosters, 2 of them. And in space shuttles, the plan is for the whole apparatus, the engines at the tail of the space shuttle, plus the solid rocket boosters, all to go off the launch pad in one big thrust, and it has to be throttled back a bit, then throttled forward, and as it reaches just past the 2-minute mark, the plan is for the solid rocket boosters to jettison away and fall away. The space shuttle with its engines down here continues on up using the fuel out of this tank on upward toward space, and eventually the big fuel tank itself drops off, leaving the shuttle to orbit the Earth. Now, that's the way it has worked in the past. Now, Leo Krupp, I want to remind you, if I may, or perhaps point out to you if you had a chance to read it, that the United Press International says tonight that speculation about what caused the Space Challenger to explode shortly after takeoff Tuesday focuses primarily on the spacecraft's large fuel tank, but NASA officials declined comment on what may have triggered the blast. Now, with that in mind, let's try to take a look now at the videotape of the blast-off today. Leo, as we wait for the videotape to get completely down to the point where we want to take it up, had you heard that speculation about the suspicion area focusing on the main tank?
Well, there's no doubt, Dan, that the main tank was the explosion, the fuel for the explosion, and what triggered it, I think, is conjecture right now until NASA has a chance to look at all the items. There were some suspicious flame patterns around the nozzle area of the left, what appeared to be the left solid rocket booster, and that could have been the ignition source, but I'm sure that everybody agrees the fuel for the explosion came from the main tanks, from the external tank.
Well, let's take a look now at the videotape and have you talk it through us, emphasizing as we go through this that there may be many theories and many hypotheses, but no one at this hour actually knows what happened. This was the scene at the launch site.
7, 6, we have main engine start, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the
everything in the launch looked perfectly normal up to the point when he was going through max dynamic pressure, and this camera angle will be looking up the stern or up the tailpipe of the vehicle as it gets up, so you can't really see too much. But just as he goes through the max dynamic pressure region where he throttles his engines back, the 3 main engines back to 65%, and then he throttles them back up to 104 after he's through this area, the camera will switch from the stern view to a side view. And when it switches to the side view is when you can see the first thing that looks abnormal, and those are some little what appear to be flame leaks around the aft end of the left booster, which is the one closest to you as you're viewing this.
Now, we're just about to see that, I think, Leo Krupp, in a few seconds.
Okay, as we switch to the side view, just watch toward the aft end of the solid rocket booster, and you'll see some little flame patterns come out, and those appear to be the ignition source. There you can see them, and there's no doubt the fuel for the explosion came from the external tank. But the question is what caused it, and NASA, I'm sure, will have an answer for this after they recover all the debris and look at all the data.
Now, Leo Krupp, let's do as we have done during the day, take a closer look at the critical moments just before and during the explosion in slow motion. This is the side view that you mentioned.
Okay, you can see the little flame leaks coming back there now, just forward of the nozzle. And you'll see one that impinges, jumps up forward and impinges up on the belly of the vehicle, up near where the umbilical from the external tank, right there. And that provided the ignition source, which resulted in the catastrophic explosion.
Leo Krupp, former shuttle test pilot for Rockwell International. So our viewers and listeners can understand the area in which you called attention as one of the suspicion areas, while emphasizing all the way through that nobody actually can know what happened and why. what you were talking about, Leo, is was this area, this being the solid rocket booster on the left side from the pilot's position in the capsule. Right down in here is where you first saw those flashes.
That was the first thing that looked out of the ordinary or abnormal about the flight. Up to that point, everything looked perfectly nominal. It looked like a perfect launch.
And then, very quickly, there was a brighter flame a little further up on what appeared to be the area of the main fuel tank, that is the liquid fuel tank, liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, and then very quickly the massive fireball explosion.
That's right, and it appeared that this happened so rapidly that the crew did not have any time to react. There is a provision for the crew to do a fast separation. If they know something is amiss in a solid rocket booster or the tank, they can do what we call a fast separation, and they can separate the shuttle from that package.